especially if you're borderline and you know you're starting to have memory trouble, but you're not quite at the point where your memory scores would make you eligible to get into a study. There's inclusion and exclusion criteria. I think we'll get into that in a little bit too. But just so you know, we just have you keep coming in every 6 months if that's what you want, and we monitor you. A lot of folks with the family history really appreciate that because they know they're concerned they might start to have memory trouble. They think they're having some memory trouble, but it's not enough to make them eligible yet. So that's what we do, because we don't have a registry for you to sign up at, but we just keep you.
Just to speak about the Butler's Prevention Registry, it's for anyone with or without memory problems, 40 to 85. If you are not eligible for one of our current enrolling trials, we can maybe take a look and see if maybe a clinic evaluation might be appropriate for you, help you find neuropsychological evaluations, which is establishing that benchmark, and for some people that's a wonderful start to their process and learning more about their own brain health. And then we also, if we can contact you in the future as well, and we offer quarterly newsletters and e-newsletters about once a month, just to keep you up to date about what's happening in the field, whether it's in Rhode Island, nationally, internationally. So that way you're always informed. And those are the first group of people that are going to be contacted when something new and exciting is ready to come through.
And there's so much that's new and exciting that you would want to hear about. Just the state of the research is changing all the time. I know that my colleagues at the Ryan Institute for Neuroscience, who are doing basic research in the laboratory and not clinical trials with people, are studying the role of inflammation in the development of Alzheimer's disease and vascular issues. And so that's something I want to just talk about a little bit with the group right now, is the role of our lifestyle in increasing our risk. And let's be clear, I'm not talking about causing Alzheimer's the way we know that smoking causes lung cancer, but just increasing your risk. So let's talk about some of the risk factors, lifestyle risk factors, health risk factors that we're concerned about, that people can think about in their own lives about changing.
Well, certainly one of the things, and I believe it's the Alzheimer's Association is funding a wonderful study right now called the U.S. Pointer Study, and that's looking at lifestyle intervention and taking a look at people who are sedentary and seeing if they have a coaching through exercise and coaching through nutrition, if having that in their toolbox, if you will, if that's going to help improve their cognitive status over a period of time. So I think we're going to hear a lot more about those types of research and what we can do right now, because I think we hear all of this information and you're like, my goodness, what am I going to do about this right now? And I think that's a great tool to have right now. You know, what can we do? What can we do better? You know, we may be sleeping well, we may be getting some yoga in and some relaxation, eating the right kinds of green veggies, just following a Mediterranean-style diet, but what can we do better? And I think, you know, perhaps having in the realm of a clinical research that might assist you in that process. And, you know, it can't hurt in that regard.
So one of the things that we know now is that heart healthy is brain healthy. So a lot of things we've been doing to keep our heart healthy has also been keeping our brain healthy. But if you're like me, you know, I kind of try to lay off too much sugar, and I try to regularly exercise, and I try to get my fish into my diet, but I'm not always good about it. So what exactly do I need to be doing? And that's what our colleague Annie is here from the Alzheimer's Association. The Alzheimer's Association had their international conference this past July, which they always do. The Alzheimer's Association is wonderful for supporting financially and in many other ways the research that goes on not just here in the United States but throughout the world, globally. And we are learning a lot from other sites in the world about things that we need to do to keep our brain healthy. We just need more of that information, and we need to continue these studies. I was talking to someone earlier tonight about the ApoE4 risk factor, and we're starting to think in research that some lifestyle modifications may help lower your risk even if you're carrying that ApoE4 gene. So maybe I'm carrying that gene, but I'm exercising regularly and exercising to get my heart rate up. And I am eating that Mediterranean diet consistently, and I'm reducing my sugar intake, and I'm getting a good night's sleep. Maybe these things are helping counterbalance the risk that I get from that ApoE4 gene. So this is the kind of research that's going on now. And it is really important, we're finding, and we have to think about this. This is a whole system here. The brain is a big part of it. This heart is the engine that's pumping oxygen-rich blood into our brain. 20 to 25% of that blood is going to feed this brain. So we have to keep this engine healthy to keep this brain healthy, and we have to do everything that we can to maintain heart health and brain health. And I think Annie might be able to talk a little bit about contributing factors such as heart disease and diabetes and Alzheimer's.
I could, but I'd rather do something else
Oh,
first.
absolutely.
Just to stay on this thread, challenge yourself. Play an instrument. Learn a new language. If you knew how to speak Italian or you only knew a few words in Italian, and you have a friend that goes to the senior center that can speak Italian fluently, try and have a conversation with them, try and learn. The more you challenge your brain, the more you grease the wheels up there, the better it's going to continue to work for you. So staying socially active. As we get older, we start to isolate. You got to get out. You got to get away from the boob tube, and you got to get out even on cold winter days and go visit somebody. That social interaction is really going to help as much as diet and exercise. We know that. And and it just helps your overall sense of self and your well-being, and you feel more alive. And it's very important. So I actually thought
No, that's
that was
good. She's talking
something
about
I really wanted to talk about.
She's talking about cognitive reserve, which is a term many of us don't know about. So cognitive reserve, I always use this analogy, right? If you think of your brain as a series of roads. If you're going down the road and you come upon a sinkhole, you don't want to drive into that sinkhole, right? You want to reroute around it. So when we build up cognitive reserve, we're building those roads that help us detour around memory or thinking problems that we have. So doing things that Annie said, like challenging yourself to learn a new language, to learn a musical instrument, those are definitely the things that we want to do. My husband always does the crossword puzzles, and people say, well, I do the crossword puzzle, I do Sudoku, or I do some of those brain games online. I always say that's kind of like, if you've been doing them for a while, you're not really building any new knowledge or building any other roads. You've been down that road before. You've done those crossword puzzles. My goodness, my husband's been doing them since he's 9 years old. He's like 50-some years old now. So he doesn't have many crossword puzzles that challenge his brain. Annie said it, challenge your brain, new learning, new thinking, build those new roadways in your brain.
And not just mental things, art.
Yes.
Get your hands dirty. Work with, I'm a potter, so I'm partial to clay, but work with clay. Work with something that, working on that car engine is as good for you as any diet, so it's just using what you have will certainly help keep you as sharp as possible. It's not necessarily going to stop Alzheimer's from coming, but maybe it'll help delay some of it from progressing. So it's certainly something to keep in your toolkit. I like that toolkit analogy.
And there's a strong argument for doing all these things once you get a diagnosis. It just adds so much to the quality of your life, and possibly will keep the disease from progressing as fast as it might in somebody else. Just all these well-being things. We didn't mention sleep, so I'll throw that in there. But a good night's sleep has been shown to be really important too, that when you're asleep, your brain actually washes out all the garbage, all the plaques and tangles. And so it's an important part of good brain health. Annie, you probably have over on your table just a nice little cheat sheet on heart Yes, so everyone should go over and pick that up and tack it on your refrigerator, and just remember that all of these things that keep your heart healthy and your, and your mood good, they're just great for your brain health too.
And if I could put a little plug in, next Wednesday, November 7th.
Oh, good, yes.
The Alzheimer's Association is hosting a talk at the, I always want to say the Ramada, it is the Radisson in Warwick, on lifestyle modifications and dementias. It's really going to be an interesting talk, and we invite you all to attend that also. You can see Annie for information. There are flyers at both our tables, so.
That's fantastic. I wanted to ask a bit about challenges in recruiting study participants, and I know there are certain communities you have trouble getting into, why that's important. Could you talk a little bit about that?
So one of the major challenges that you're going to see, that we see not only in Alzheimer's disease, but in other indications as well, such as oncology, is getting more people, the entire community, to be represented in that. And by that, I mean most of the people who participate in clinical trials are the same socioeconomic level, and they tend to be Caucasian. So in order to find a cure for a disease that affects so many people, regardless of where you come from, we need more people to represent the communities that they come from. So we need minority recruitment into trials has historically been very challenging for a variety of reasons, and good reasons at that. But we are now about to turn into a new decade. We are in the 21st century, and so we need to come to the table together, have frank discussions about what those challenges are and how we might be able to surmount them, and then move forward so that we can have more people to participate. Because if we find a breakthrough treatment for this disease and it's only for a certain group of people, then we have not succeeded. Mm-hmm. We need everyone to participate from wherever you come from to be in these trials. And I think there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of lack of education that needs to be addressed first before we can move forward with that. And I think all of our sites here are more than willing to have that discussion with you. And so we can learn. This is a two-way discussion. This is not just us telling you, you need to tell us. And so that's extremely important, and I feel very strongly about that we make sure we have that open dialogue in order to move forward into the future and find something very successful.
So this is a nut we definitely have to crack. We also need to get more men involved in Alzheimer's research, because it's predominantly women that are participating in research. We have to remember that almost 50 million people worldwide are living right now with Alzheimer's disease. So I just want to echo what Tara said. It's imperative that, and I am always blunt about this, we cannot develop a drug that only works for white, middle-class, educated women. We need a drug that works for every single person in this world.
And I'm not sure if you know, but African Americans are 2 times more likely to develop this disease, and the Latinx population is 1.5 times more likely. So it is absolutely imperative that we have participation from all these different communities in order to find that breakthrough treatment.
Why is it important to get as many people as possible into clinical trials?
I always like to remind people that all of us sitting in here, not one of our bodies operates in the same way. We have a lot in common, but we have a lot of differences. And just think, Excedrin PM might work for my migraine, but it won't necessarily work for Annie's migraine. So the more people we can get involved with research, the better we can really look at precision medicine here, so that we can find treatment that will work for everybody. And I'm going to just take a moment here to step back, because more and more, and I think my colleagues will agree with me here, we're starting to think, or we're coming to realize, that treatment for Alzheimer's disease is going to be a lot like treatment for cancer. Mm-hmm. We're going to have to use cocktails, mixes of drugs, and probably other modifications to lifestyle to really treat this disease, and it's going to be very individualized, we think. So it's really important that we get as many people on board as we can, so that, again, these medications, these cocktails, these options that are available, I don't want to have to say, they've cured my Alzheimer's disease, but they can't cure yours. So.
I just want to say, I think one of the barriers to people thinking about going into a study is a generational stigma associated with the disease. And I think as the new generation of people come along, you know, those in their 40s, they're going to be more open to the idea of joining a study when they hit 60 and 70. But the folks who are now in their 70s and 80s, the stigma associated to having something wrong with them mentally is still very strong. And I think that is one of the barriers, and I think if we can all just get over ourselves, we might be able to find a cure for this and stop thinking in terms of there's something wrong with me as a human being because I have memory trouble. And that to me is one of the most primary barriers to this disease and why it's so hard to get people to come into a study. Because they don't, or they're in denial and they don't think anything's wrong with them. Most people that come to these events are the family members that know that their loved one is starting to have the disease. But those that come and sign up are usually not the ones that are having the memory trouble. It's the ones who are afraid they're going to get the memory trouble. So it's kind of educating and, again, providing an environment where they come in and they feel comfortable is our task to help you cure this illness.
So I just want to remind everybody that this is a disease that we're talking about, and a disease of the brain. Like so many other diseases that we recognize as diseases, addictions are a brain disease, schizophrenia, other mental health things. The reason I think Alzheimer's disease is often, I use the word closeted, is because it's a disease of, and many people think of it as a disease of old age. And we have to stop thinking about that. The youngest person diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease right now is 29 years of age. So this is not strictly an old disease of aging. It is definitely not. And I think we're seeing more cases of early onset Alzheimer's disease. That could be because it wasn't properly diagnosed before, or that could be that there are more occurrences of it now. We have to figure out why that's happening. But we have to shift our thinking. Annie's right. We have to think differently about this disease and understand that if a 29-year-old can get it, then we need to think of it as a lifespan disease. That 29-year-old would have had that disease starting in the brain 15 to 20 years before it showed. So now we're talking about potentially a 9-year-old who's starting to develop this disease.
I do have to say that in my experience, those with the young onset of Alzheimer's, which is what she's referring to, those who get it before the age of 65, are more interested in joining a study than those over the age of 65 who maybe just think it's a part of aging or for, you know, like I said, these other cultural reasons. And those who get it at a younger age are really desperate because they know what's in store for them as the disease progresses. It's almost in a way two different diseases when you look at the rapid onset of a younger person who gets Alzheimer's and the severity of the disease and how rapidly it progresses. So they're really so much more, they get it. They get why research is so important, I think, compared to those who are getting it in their 70s and 75 and 80. Although these medications may very well help them all, if we can get everybody in the studies that could benefit from it.
And I think one of the things about the benefits of participating in perhaps the clinical research is that you are taking perhaps something that is you're fearing, you fear this, and changing it and doing something positive with it. You are doing something. This is also giving you the opportunity to plan ahead in a way that you want to. Someone else is not making those decisions for you. You are actively having a say in how you would like to be cared for, what you would like to be doing, where you would like to be sooner, and you can voice those eloquently. and say, this is what I want to do. And some of these things that you need to take care of take time. Especially if we're looking at, say, financial longevity or something like that, you need time to take those, put things in order, get all your ducks in a row. The more time you have for that, the less stressed you're going to be, and then you can feel at ease at how, going into the future, that things are going to be done the way you would like them and not done under duress. So I think that's really important.
And one more thing that I try to reiterate with people is, if you had a diagnosis of cancer and that cancer was terminal and they were not able to find treatment for you, you wouldn't hesitate probably to participate in a clinical trial. Clinical trials, in my thinking, should be part of a care and treatment plan for your disease. Right now, and I never like saying this is a fatal disease. Mm-hmm. No one yet has survived this disease, though the Alzheimer's Association always shares with us the first person to survive that disease has probably been born already and is walking on this earth, which is a really exciting thing to think about. So think about it as part of your comprehensive care for your disease, participation in clinical research. We can talk a little bit more about the benefits that you get as a participant in clinical research, but I will let Catherine help us through this conversation.
Exactly, and I did want to just put my elderly affairs hat on for a minute and make that distinction that dementia and Alzheimer's disease are not normal aging. They're not. And it's important to know that you can grow to a ripe old age and be cognitively completely normal, and that's the way it should be, and that's what we're all working on because we want it to be that way for everyone. Certainly the scientists that I work with at URI believe that cure is around the corner and also agree it's probably Alzheimer's disease as we grow older is probably many different diseases, and we'll attack it many different ways, which is why we need all of your help. But there is just, I hope you hear it in all of our voices and everything we've said. We are so optimistic, which is why we're here, and which is why we want to recruit all of you, if not to be in trials, then to spread the word about why this is really the golden age of research into Alzheimer's. Both in our state, Rhode Island really boasts some of the finest researchers, both our fine doctors here who run the clinics, but also we have incredible institutions doing basic research. We have Brown, we have the VA, we have the Rhode Island Hospital is doing some, we have URI, the Ryan Institute. It's just really exciting.
Rhode Island, small and mighty.
We're very small and mighty. And then on a national and international level, the investment finally, but is unprecedented in its scope. And so it's all hands on deck, and people are dropping tired theories that haven't worked yet and looking at new things and thinking outside the petri dish for the first time in a really long time. So, we want you to leave here with just the sense of optimism that we have. I don't know how long we're going to be here together. I want to make sure we have time for questions. Should we get into that? Do you want to?
Could we maybe
absolutely
talk with Julie and Ed a little bit about their experience?
Absolutely.
I think that might be a good time.
Do you want to take a mic over to them?
Yes. Why don't you introduce
So I'm going to introduce you to some folks. This is Julie and Ed. They're in the one of our trials at Rhode Island New Memory, and they volunteered to come tonight and just kind of talk to you a little bit. I won't go into details about exactly what study they're in. I don't want to give any personal information out, but I just wanted them to come so maybe that they can inspire you on considering being a study candidate.
I don't know, Ed should talk first, but
Figure it out.
Ed went through, well, I got him in to see a neurologist because I was continuing to notice, changes in his memory. And so we went through the 3.5 to 4 hour testing, and then he went to a neurologist. And then Ed being who's the kind of person that he is, I came home from work and he had been on the computer all day long looking for something, for some sort of research, because he knows what this disease entails. And so I'll let him kind of go, like, how he found mood memory, and then me being his support person. But I will say it's been a very positive experience.
If I remember correctly, I looked at the clinical trials. I think it's clinicaltrials.org.
Gov.
And I think I started out, I was diagnosed 3 years ago, disabled. And I started out with the New Haven Hospital, and Annie would know more about that test, that trial than I would, but it was everything was very easy. It was everybody's very, personable, and, so anyway, trying to think so anyway, I've been in clinical trial for 3 years. And it's been a good experience. I don't dread going or anything like that. I live in Stoughton, which is about 17 miles south of Boston. It's easier for me to go down to, where you are.
In East Providence. Yeah, he doesn't mind coming over the bridge, just saying.
There are no bridges in that direction.
And the last memory test I took, I did as good, I think, as the one I had 3 years earlier.
You're holding.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say in the beginning, when I first had to go in and, meet with Annie and Lynn and everybody, I was so nervous, like, what am I going to say? But I just have to be honest. And so in the first, all the questions and stuff like that, you finally just get used to them and, just try to answer them the best you can. But Ed didn't get in. He didn't qualify for a couple of the studies, just because he is very well-versed and very smart, and he knew all these things. And I'm like, come on. But anyway, he definitely, clearly does have a diagnosis as early onset dementia. And us being older parents, but we still do have 2 children in college. So it has been a challenge with our family, and but we have all the support of them and the support of Moving Memory. I mean, they are wonderful people, and they know what Ed likes when he goes down for his infusions. They get his little cookies and his smoothies and
We do
whatever.
pamper
They
him.
say,
We do.
Okay, go ahead, go shopping. So they kind of want a piece of him, I think.
We send you to Kohl's. We're like, go shopping at Kohl's. Go take off for a couple hours. So, yeah.
But what he's in right now it is very exciting, and the news that came with Ed, you're really holding your own. They don't see him worsening. I don't know how much better, but he's kind of holding his own. And then we went to his neurologist like 2 days later after our last visit. And, his doctor also said the same thing. So we are very hopeful. And then that drug came out. And I was like very excited. But we've done some things kind of on our bucket list, just in case the left foot drops and things change very dramatically. But we're just kind of living life each day, and we hope that we continue to, just stay steady as we are. But I would definitely go down there, and they'll always have a study that you can, we went through many before he finally qualified. And
Well, that's an example of we didn't let him go. We just kind of hung on to him. Because he was borderline. We didn't have a study he actually met criteria for a while, and then, so we had to wait until, and that's unfortunate, but hopefully with the new studies coming on that are allowing people who are just starting to have symptoms, but don't have to have a certain memory score or, score a certain way on a certain test, and that's part of the inclusion and exclusion criteria of getting into studies. It isn't as easy as it sounds to actually meet all of the criteria. And in his case, we kind of had to just hold on to him. So we just, every 3 months, every 6 months, we'd have him come in and see how he was doing. And then as soon as the study came that he was eligible for, it went like clockwork.
It's been great. We're coming up almost on that year of being in this study, where he has to have the PET scans and the MRIs and blood work and all that kind of stuff. But we just kind of go with the flow. I haven't taken any time off from work. I kind of just work it around my schedule. If things progress, I may have to think of that differently. But it's worked out, and they're very adaptable for the most part of scheduling. Julie, what's your schedule? What days are you off? So that's been a very positive thing too, that we really all work together. Sharon, anything else to say about this?
I think Julie recognized that I was, I think